In 2018, Boston officer Mark Delaney and Indian nurse Anika Suri began a secret relationship inside St. Bridget's Hospital. 5 years later, their hidden affair ended in a brutal murder inside the hospital's parking garage. Mark Delaney's life had always followed a strict pattern. As a Boston police officer, he believed in order, discipline, and keeping his emotions locked away. Everything changed the day he stepped into St. Bridget's Hospital with a minor wrist injury from a training accident. That was when he noticed Anika Suri, a calm and focused Indian nurse who moved through the busy emergency room with quiet confidence. She had a gentle way of handling patients, and her presence felt strangely grounding to him. At first, their interactions were brief and professional. Mark admired her dedication, while Anika appreciated his respect and patience. Both carried silent burdens in their personal lives and found an unexpected comfort in each other's company. Their conversations began slowly, and each meeting seemed to linger in Mark's mind long after he left the hospital. For Anika, far from her family in India, Mark's attention made the unfamiliar city feel a bit less lonely. What started as simple moments grew into longer exchanges behind closed doors, hidden from curious eyes. They shared details about their lives, their dreams, and the emptiness they tried to ignore. Mark never planned to betray his marriage, and Anika never intended to fall for someone unavailable. Yet the emotional connection formed quietly, building layer by layer over weeks that turned into months. By the end of the first year, the bond between them had become something neither could easily walk away from. Though unspoken, they both understood that the relationship had crossed a line, setting the stage for a dangerous future neither of them imagined. As the years passed, Mark Delaney's life began to split into two worlds that could no longer coexist. At home, he tried to act like the dependable husband he had always been, but the effort felt heavier every day. His wife noticed the growing distance, missed dinners, late-night shifts that weren't real, and a constant distraction in his eyes. Mark blamed the stress of the job, yet it was the pressure of maintaining the affair that hollowed him from the inside. At work, colleagues sensed a shift in his behavior. He became more irritable, less focused, and prone to sudden bursts of frustration. Routine tasks felt overwhelming. He carried a constant fear of being discovered, checking his phone repeatedly to delete messages from Anika before anyone else could see them. Every notification made his heart race, and every unanswered message from her stirred panic. Meanwhile, Anika's patience began to thin. She had invested 5 years in a relationship built on a promise Mark never fulfilled. She wanted clarity, a future, a commitment, or at least honesty. But Mark avoided every difficult conversation, terrified that choosing her meant losing everything else. He believed he could balance both lives indefinitely, yet the cracks widened with every passing day. Their once comforting connection became a source of tension. Anika felt neglected, and Mark felt trapped. He feared that ending the relationship would provoke emotional fallout, but continuing it threatened to expose him. With every lie he told his wife and every excuse he gave Anika, he drifted deeper into a maze of his own making, unable to see a way out. Anika Suri had always believed that patience and compassion could mend almost anything, but after 5 long years, her hope began to fade. She had built a life in Boston through long shifts, lonely weekends, and a constant effort to create stability far from home. Yet the relationship that once felt meaningful had turned into a heavy weight she carried every day. Mark's promises repeated in cycles, always delayed, always uncertain. She realized that she had paused her own life for someone who never truly intended to change his. The turning point came during a quiet evening in her small apartment. She reviewed her transfer application to a hospital in Seattle, something she had submitted in secret weeks earlier. When the acceptance email finally arrived, she felt a wave of relief she hadn't expected. For the first time in years, she imagined a future shaped by her own decisions, not by waiting for someone else's. The thought of leaving Boston frightened her, yet it also felt like freedom. Anika began preparing quietly. She packed small items, sorted documents, and informed only a few trusted colleagues. She avoided meeting Mark outside work, trying to create emotional distance before physically separating from him. Each step forward brought a mix of peace and guilt. She didn't want to hurt him, but she also couldn't continue living in uncertainty. Mark sensed the shift the moment Anika grew distant. Her silence unsettled him, though he didn't yet know what it meant. Anika, however, had made up her mind. She was finally walking away, unaware of the storm her decision would unleash. Mark Delaney's life began to unravel the moment he realized Anika was slipping away from him. The change in her behavior was small at first: short replies, fewer meetings after work, a quietness that hadn't been there before. But to Mark, it felt like a warning bell. He grew anxious, convinced that she was hiding something. Every hour he spent away from her fueled his imagination until simple doubts turned into obsessive thoughts he couldn't control. He began monitoring her without admitting it to himself. After his shifts, he drove past the hospital to see if her car was still in the lot. He watched her apartment building from a distance, rationalizing that he simply needed to understand what she was feeling. When she didn't answer her messages, he scrolled through her social media, checking every new post, every interaction, searching for signs of someone else. His mind twisted innocent details into imagined betrayals. At work, the pressure was visible. He snapped at colleagues, forgot basic procedures, and isolated himself in his patrol car when he should have been cooperating with his team. Even routine calls left him shaken, as if the entire world was closing in on the secret he had been hiding for years. He feared that Anika's withdrawal meant she would expose their affair, intentionally or not, and the consequences terrified him. In his home, the guilt pushed him to act overly attentive, though it only deepened the emotional distance with his wife. He felt cornered, losing grip on Anika, unable to confess the truth, and terrified of what her decisions meant for him. As his obsession tightened, he convinced himself that her leaving wasn't just abandonment, but a threat to everything he had left. The night of the murder began with an eerie calm that seemed out of place in the harsh Boston winter. The hospital parking garage was nearly empty, its concrete pillars casting long shadows under flickering lights. Anika finished her final shift with a quiet sense of closure. She had said private goodbyes to the few colleagues she trusted and walked through the halls knowing it was her last time as part of that world. Her suitcase was already packed at home, and an early morning flight awaited her. For the first time in years, her future felt within reach. What she did not know was that Mark had been waiting inside the garage long before her shift ended. He sat hidden between two vehicles, consumed by panic and rage that had been building for days. He had discovered fragments of her plans, papers left in her car during a brief moment of carelessness, and the truth struck him like a blow. She was leaving, not temporarily, but permanently. The thought shattered what little stability he had left. When Anika entered the garage, she felt a cold draft brush past her, but assumed it came from the winter wind outside. She walked toward her car with steady steps, unaware of the presence lurking in the shadows. Mark moved toward her in silence, driven by fear, desperation, and a distorted sense of betrayal. His emotions erupted in a sudden, uncontrollable act. Within moments, the confrontation turned violent, and the isolated garage echoed with the quiet finality of the tragedy. As Mark fled into the frigid night, the weight of what he had done settled heavily on him. The life he was trying to protect had been destroyed by his own hands. The following morning, the hospital felt unusually tense even before anyone understood why. A security guard on routine patrol entered the third level of the parking garage and noticed something strange near a row of parked cars. As he moved closer, he found Anika's still body lying on the cold concrete, her belongings scattered beside her. The sight sent a shock through the entire hospital staff. What had begun as an ordinary workday instantly turned into a scene filled with fear and disbelief. Police units arrived quickly and secured the area. Detectives began photographing the scene, marking evidence, and trying to understand what had happened during the quiet hours of the night. There were no obvious signs of robbery, no missing valuables, and no indication that she had been followed by a stranger. Everything about the scene suggested a personal attack. The brutality and precision hinted at someone who knew her well. Investigators reviewed footage from the garage's security cameras. At first, the images were blurry and interrupted by dark corners where the lights had malfunctioned. But a faint silhouette appeared in several frames, moving in and out of the shadows before Anika arrived. When the footage was enhanced, a crucial detail emerged: a small metallic object clipped to the person's belt. Its distinct shape resembled a police badge. The discovery stunned the detectives and sent alarm through the Boston Police Department. It meant that the suspect might be one of their own. As the investigation widened, every officer who had any connection to Anika was questioned, creating tension throughout the department. What had started as a tragic loss quickly grew into a case filled with betrayal, secrecy, and suspicion resting uncomfortably close to home. Investigators began tracing every detail of Anika's private life, determined to uncover the truth hidden beneath her quiet exterior. When detectives accessed her phone records, they found numbers she had frequently contacted that were not family or colleagues. One number stood out, a personal line registered to Officer Mark Delaney. At first, they viewed it as a possible coincidence linked to a prior case or hospital incident, but the frequency of communication raised immediate suspicion. Digging deeper, they discovered text messages that had been deleted but partially recoverable. The tone of the messages revealed a long-standing emotional relationship marked by tension, longing, and recent conflict. Investigators also found emails on Anika's laptop discussing a new job opportunity in Seattle, along with drafts expressing exhaustion from a complicated relationship she wanted to leave behind. Each piece of evidence pointed in a single direction. When detectives questioned Mark, his calm facade cracked quickly. His initial claim, that he barely knew Anika, collapsed once they presented the recovered records. His explanations grew inconsistent, shifting between vague stories and sudden bursts of defensiveness. Colleagues who once trusted him began noticing details they had previously overlooked: late-night departures, unexplained absences, and a recent air of agitation that matched the timeline of Anika's withdrawal. The final blow came from matching the silhouette in the security footage with Mark's physical build and the badge clip he always wore on his belt. Cornered by mounting proof, Mark's composure crumbled. He admitted to being in the garage but insisted it was only to talk. The investigation had reached its turning point, and there was no path left for him that led away from the truth. The trial that followed became one of the most talked-about cases in Boston in years. Courtrooms filled with reporters, hospital workers, police officers, and members of the community who struggled to understand how a respected officer could become the center of such a tragic story. Mark Delaney entered the courtroom in handcuffs, a stark contrast to the authoritative figure people once knew. His reputation, built over years of service, had collapsed in a matter of days. Prosecutors presented a detailed timeline supported by phone records, surveillance footage, and forensic evidence gathered from the parking garage. They described a man driven by fear, jealousy, and a desperate attempt to control a situation slipping from his grasp. The jury listened to every detail, including Anika's plans for a new life and the emotional strain she had endured while trying to separate herself from the relationship. Her motives were clear, grounded in hope and self-preservation, while Mark's actions revealed a spiral into obsession. Anika's family traveled from India to attend the hearings. Their quiet grief filled the courtroom with a weight that words could not measure. They had sent their daughter across the world for a better future, only to see her life end in a place meant for healing. Their presence reminded everyone of the true human cost behind the legal proceedings. The verdict delivered a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The courtroom fell silent as Mark was led away, no longer an officer but a prisoner defined by a single irreversible act. The case left the city shaken, serving as a haunting reminder that even those sworn to protect others can carry hidden darkness, and that unaddressed secrets can destroy far more than the lives they touch.